I believe that the idea here is, this is an open space so you can make your list of questions. I believe this space has been replaced from the Telegram group, so I think we can take this out of the event, maybe. Wesley Correa Coluton, the list of questions at the Telegram was really heavy. We can't bring him here. First, on behalf of the entire community, we would like to thank you for all the effort of the IX.br has carried out in our an exchange point ecosystem that is managed by this project in Brazil. We understand that it's extremely relevant for the development and for the growth of internet in Brazil. These traffic exchange points, and even when the participants know how to do things correctly, to take care of the network, to be safe, to participate as well of traffic exchanges that are more regionalized so they can foster these exchange points. I believe that we should give a round of hands for this team because they have done a very great job, and this is essential for the Brazilian internet market. Okay, now that I was nice, now I will punch you. Now, first and foremost, congratulations for opening the ports and the peaks of Rio. Are you going to clear 40 ports in São Paulo? This is one of my questions. Another question would be, first, I would like to thank you because of the reports, the incident reports. We work directly with the ISP market together with the providers, and it's very important to know what happens in order to provide feedback to people that work with us. So I believe that these reports have added a lot of value, not only in the transparency of the project. This is more transparent for the community, but for us that are operational. My question here is, how can I say this? What is the principle that rules these reports? Because I realized that in a number of reports, some information were like vague here. We really didn't understand what the problem was. I do know that there is a level of NDA, we can't put the name of the vendor, but even for us that work with this, it was a bit vague and we really didn't understand this, and it was difficult to clearly explain this to the carrier that is at the end. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's go. The question of the 40 gig ports. The position continues the same. We'll only use them when we have availability of equipment of ports of 40 gigs. We are making available ports of 100 gigas, and we will work with 40 gigs. In São Paulo, there's no chance on clearing ports of 40 gigs. Because we won't, there will be a lack of 100 gig ports, so we can't make available these 40 gig ports. Now regarding the reports, I really don't know what you consider vague. We try to give you the situation. We can put a lot of technical details because there are things that take some time to place all the information in the report, because it's not simple to identify the root cause and to identify exactly what is happening. So, and if there are cases, I don't know if you remember a case that was vague for you, well, perhaps you could request a greater clarification here. But I don't know, there was a case where we had an electrical problem. It was an electrical problem. We really didn't discover the cause. The equipment disconnected on our side, on the side of the data center, and we really didn't find any reasonable for it to disconnect. So what we decided to do was to change to another network with different equipment, and we changed everything actually, okay? So when you have this case, you can ask us and see what happened. I have no problem whatsoever. Now, following Wesley's line, not only the content of the report, I am a UB. It is very important to have access to this information, the local publication, and the speed. We completed 1 year after the IX Fórum last year about a public page that is updated according to the emergence of problems. I don't know, you can show the IX situation according to different colors. The participations of IX are always, creating notes. It's working. Did it fall? How is it working for you? This would be resolved and if we would have a page where we could access that would be updated, where you could place if there is a problem or not, if you suspect there is a problem, if something is under investigation, what is the status? Like the GNT that does an excellent job, that has an excellent history here in terms of software. We have free open softwares that can be used, and I believe that the community would be benefited if we would have an accessible point, a public web page with information that shows us that everything is okay if there is a suspicion. And I believe that we talked about this 1 year ago.
We have status blog ready to go. We would like to be here today with that online tool for you. You have even found out about the access address. The main problem, though, is that you have to make that information available both in Portuguese and English. We are trying to reach a common level where there is no need to have two independent systems. Maybe we could have an online translator. Anything is better than nothing. I'm just trying to think about something else. Well, that will be ready by the beginning of next year, not only for São Paulo, but for other places as well. I don't know about reports. The idea is to have a descriptive once we detect the problem, we register next steps. As we were talking about LCA calculation, it's complicated to us. We may talk about IX infrastructure once we perceive by our monitoring that there is a problem going on. If the problem is at the transport side or the data center or any other connected systems, we cannot tell that. If WhatsApp is slow, I don't know if the problem is with us or not. If there is any problem within the autonomous system, we will not say that the problem is of the autonomous system. It's up to them to state that. We are always the ones to be blamed, but most of the time we are not guilty for that. Even if by anyhow we believe there is a problem with the IAS, we cannot put that in that. So internet as a whole will not have an exclusive participant, right? I don't know if I will come back to this line several times. No, you're allowed to ask one question at a time, okay? So I'll start by something very, very simple. That's not a question, it's a suggestion. I'll start by that. We have several problems with participants which drop the sessions and then they say, how are you? Are you back? Can we get back? How about this? How about that? And I had addressed that. Is it possible to sit at the IX operator chair and allow them not to accept and not to disclose prefixes for you to have a minimum of sensitivity to know what's going on, more or less in the style of IU. That and then we have problems with that. So that should be a recommendation by IX. Do not drop the sessions. Apply and filters while it's not everything fine. So far we have noise. Hold on to that. Effectively, there are problems which happen by participants' lack of care. The guy does not comply with best practices, and sometimes they do whatever they can to go over the quarantine, and then they go back doing wrong stuff. So what to expect for a continuous quarantine? We have to revisit constantly all the security aspects. And even if we can punish that guy, maybe, because if someone leak a route and that is no longer a problem to do something wrong, that will be harmful, not only to him, but to another 400 people. And that guy has no right to do that. Thank you.
A quarentena, nós...
Quarantine with the Moreira's teams, we had considered continuous tests to get this type of problem. Mac exchange, they do not exchange the equipment that didn't pass the test. So, oh yes, we are considering that. We haven't got a forecast, but that has been thought, has been considered. In addition to that, we have a collector that will collect that, and they deactivate those participants. That was a constant thing where we monitor.
Tão bonito que nem o seu programa lá, que coleta tudo, né? Mas a gente tem ação em relação a isso.
But we have a number of actions.
Douglas.
Pode falar, Fediane.
Boa tarde, muito prazer. Eu vou fazer uma pergunta só.
Hello, good afternoon. I have just one question, but before that, I'd like to make some considerations for those who are here and online. Tomorrow, there will be a panel, which I'll be the moderator, where we will address transit burst with 95% percentile that somehow can be justified as that exists for a long time, and that could help. Maybe we could see those companies that would start hiring more transit and to be able to hold them while that problem is taking place. Maybe people would feel peaceful if that happens. Many people will leave today, but you can follow us by streaming. If we won't be able to make it, follow us. It will be at 10 to 4 p.m. actually. Are there any further considerations or any attempt to do a pilot that is about IBD or BID? We have to try to help IX.br team to find solutions. Anytime we have a request, we have challenges to surpass. So it's up to us to bring those solutions. In case of BID, we have talked about the difficulties to adopt BID, just mentioning two of them. I don't know if there is any problem regarding optical mirror, if we had to redo it, to adequate it, if that would be possible in all pics or not, if we could consider that or not, what is preventing us from doing that, or maybe logistics. Today use a GB can use for pop link and for clients as well. So maybe a way to minimize it is to combine IX.br. We will use just one side of the bid and client the other one. We also talked about some manufacturers' problems who do not fill the bid standards. And to solve that, maybe we could start with a compatibility list. To many ASNs today, 10 giga is no longer sufficient. And with 40, we cannot supply that, especially São Paulo. And many people had invested in routers with ports of 10 and 40, but not 100. But you cannot justify to exchange the device. Maybe that would be faster. You should not go through cross connect. I just would like to know if you had any other internal discussion about that. Yes, no, maybe.
Fernando, então, a respeito do BID, algumas considerações técnicas que a gente talvez devesse considerar.
Some other technical considerations about the platform provider, which will support participants' connections, to authorize them or to have those interfaces in their list of compatibility. We open an exception for 40 giga. Before, we would never allow 40, just 100 giga. Technically speaking, that's feasible. We have been negotiating that with participants for the I6 with erased fibers, and we had shaped the capacity expansion, 1/4 of fibers, in addition to those 10 gigabytes, with a multiplexer where we define what are the compatibility characteristics, and one at our side and another one at the participant's side. Technically speaking, that's possible. It's just a matter of understand if that is feasible or not to us. You said to place a multiplexer in your structure. We faced some difficulties to allow that a participant connected in a raised one would go beyond 10 gigabytes with one single pair of fibers. Each new connection would have to provide a pair of fibers, and that would not be feasible at all. We had projected and defined that participants could use that same pair of fibers to connect in multiples of 10 giga with a compatible DWDM at both sides. So that fiber pair is lightened by different color interfaces. just for those who are with shredded fibers at the center. Yes, that is a step ahead. We can allow capacity increase with that external fiber model. So technically speaking, that can be done. It's just a matter to evaluate if that can be open for that purpose. And stock diversity. Today we work with 99% of our interface of one single type, L mode. In equipment upgrades, if you have a BID interface, that represents an additional restriction in the future, in terms of compatibility. For example, I want to change my vendor. In 1 to 2 years, I have to perform all tests, logging into the BID interface. If that's not compatible, let's replace all my inventory. And that can be an obstacle for bidirectional BID adoption. I tried to execute those bidirectional interfaces in the past, not at NIC, but from manufacturer's standpoint, the support associated not to providing that solution to that platform. Well, that may be okay for one interface, but the same interface that we use today in one extreme, we use in all others. So we would have to investigate that possibility from manufacturer's standpoint to allow the use of these solutions. I would like to thank NIC and IX.br for the wonderful job done. I hope that is spread all over the country. Sometimes there is that guy who lives the remote region of Amapá up north. They connect down here in São Paulo, but they do not connect in their local X. Is there any sort of incentive to ask that guy to connect at his local region? Probably he does not connect down there because there is no OTT, and the OTT or the content provider will not take a connection there if there is not enough amount of AS connected to that. Can you do something about that? In that sense, we have two actions. One is action of awareness, where we take best practices training jointly to regional IX forums, to different regions of the country, for instance. This year, we carried out 10 regional IX forums, one in São Paulo and all the others somewhere else. The goal was talking to local providers, public companies, universities, companies which are autonomous systems with that potential, and we try to raise awareness for better use. And as we are in São Paulo, we have a very good idea as how things happen over here, but we do not know what the reality is somewhere else. And thanks to IX Regional, we are able to listen to them, to hear what their problems are, and to create opportunity for the regional regional participants to get to know each other and together design and create new solutions. This is an ongoing initiative with some limited results, but we do not expect to have a meeting somewhere else in January and to grab results by the next month. No, that needs to become more mature, and sometimes it may take even years and not just weeks or months. We have a second initiative, which is the Open CDM. We started operating in Salvador, Bahia State last July. And we harvest good results, new members participating at IX.br Salvador. We expanded the traffic. And now in the next coming months, we will know if that will be sustainable or not once costs are shared. Calculated costs for the number of participants present there, that's quite low. So we believe that will be auto-sustainable, and we are planning to take that somewhere else. That is a process where we have to convince content people that sounds as a good idea. In Salvador, we had Google's and who agreed. So we are trying to convince others. That is a model different from the other two. We also face some problems like that. We found it difficult to find a proper place to fix our structure. It's useless to have a point of traffic, POT, without a proper structure such as energy, security. We cannot take the project ahead because that locality has no appropriated structure to operate. We have to have a stable infrastructure. We are trying to solve that. And we have to address that. Brazil is a country of huge dimensions with different realities. These are obstacles that we have to overcome. But how? We are thinking about that. It's a large continent with different cultures, but the idea of having an IX regional forum, that will be helpful in the coming years. Thank you. I just have a comment about the remote IXs. And that has to go a bit beyond awareness. You have to be a bit evil, a bit bad. You are too nice sometimes. If someone does something wrong, they have to be punished for that. And they have to have a more... If they have a port, they'll get 100 reais discounted to connect in the São Paulo's port. So they are very sensitive to money. And I think we have to be bad with that. Maybe people will feel like punching me later, but I don't care. And I'm talking about... I'm not talking about the bilateral ones. I'm talking about mainframe at the TM. There are some IXs in the world that they use a separate VLAN for that. And considering the complexity of your system, that does not sound as a good idea. At least extra 3,000 running VLANs, 2 for V6, another one for V4. I believe, and I have experience with some other Jumbo, which runs in the multilateral layer agreement, and they do not have that problem. We have to be adapted, and we are talking about Jumbo frame in L2. And my question now is, what is the availability? One of the worries is to avoid that they will encapsulate or they want to use IX transport. And they lose 8 bits, and they just deliver a certain amount. Then you know what I'm talking about. So we believe that with the Jumbo, that will not add any additional problem with no additional impact. So I think that's possible. And what is your position? You were talking about MTU. I didn't quite understand the beginning of your question. He said, some of the problems that we face this year, they have to do with change of technology or how equipments they operate internally. I don't know. We still have to think more about that. One of the main causes and problems that we face today, initially, broadcast generation or unicast, that was done by CPUs. And now that is being done by ASICs. The capacity to generate data flow by the packages is much higher now, causing several problems. We have no idea, we didn't have time yet to evaluate that. What would imply in terms of payload size, in terms of traffic? The traffic characteristics that we have at our net is difficult to be treated. So we have no idea about the side effects for that. Sorry. If IP transit is indigo frame, why isn't the largest IX? He said tier 1 and tier 2. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Spoke too fast. The internet operates in jumbo frame for quite a while. And my suggestion is just to start. Of course, São Paulo is so critical, it's painful. And unfortunately, we had several obstacles to face this year. But there are other states. Why don't you start by somewhere else? A place which is not so painful, that does not hurt so much. Why don't you start Londrina city? Apparently, he lives closer to this place that he's suggesting.
Elisandro.
Acho que é Elisandro, é?
Elisandro, por favor.
Elisandro, o Douglas acho que pode ficar tranquilo.
While he was asking for MTU, someone was praying, so probably within 3 days that will be available. My suggestion is to have documentations and to generate a content where we can show to the ISNs owners how that work. We had a increase in the number of requests, and people realized that the only way to have an address was removing an IS. And that led to a number of problems. and you end up being guilty for everything else. They cannot identify if that program is in their transport or not, or you become liable for errors and participants' IX decisions. And for those famous cases of those people that go to the Facebook group and they say that they'll get a large number of ASs and they will lawsuit IX.br. What is your take on that? And second, is there a recommendation to generate a material like IPv6 explaining about MTU, protocols, the structure, for this type of situation? So those that still do not have the domain, neither a clear idea as how that works, they can have a position by IX. Sometimes as consultants, people do not believe, do not trust us. Provider owners, they think we are not being real. And I'd like to hear your opinion to generate an official content to show to the market what is your position
Para onde vocês direcionam?
and how do you direct these people. Well. We have some initiatives such as best practices courses. It's possible that the best practice courses does not cover everything else. And there is much material demand, the IX content to improve examples or explanations about concepts or security, safer internet, to improve recommendations. We have that initiative, and we have also people to prepare material, to give courses, and so on. I will give a suggestion to the community. In case of more specific demands, a tutorial of this topic would be very, very important. Bring it to us, and then we can see what we can prioritize. Material demands, they are high. And if you as a consultant, and if you can help with some type of material, with a draft, and to hand that in to us, that will be great. We will help to complete, to give credits, and go on. And life goes on.
Concurso do BECOP, a gente está fazendo o IX Fórum regional, que sempre tem momento de discussão.
There is always a time where the community discussing that site will always take someone from IX close to them.
Tá bom. Obrigado, Eduardo. Gente, só mais as duas últimas, rapidinho, porque...
We are running very, very late, so finally the last question, I suppose. Why don't we have IX.br, in the IX.br site, a list with all participants and a checkbox of those who offer that in a way to access the physical port throughout a connection? I think he said 6 or something like that.
Sim, 6 continues.
6 continues, and the site, I believe this is a suggestion of placing a checkbox is something that is valid. Good afternoon, Rafael Gamassin. My question is technical. As customers, we always see IX as a layer 2 domain. I would like to see to the future. We heard Aloysio. VPN is something really cool. Now, what about the future? Is IX going to, are we going to be able to deal better with broadcast, with traffic? This was also approached in a number of talks. So what do you think about the future in terms of technology to minimize the impact that we have, the SKey node? Because our customer believe that is high processing. What can we do from people from AIX that may had a ARP sponge? So what do you think about the future? Junior is going to answer this question, but I'm going to provoke you. Obviously, the future is IPv6, and IPv6 doesn't have broadcast, so everything is resolved. The only thing you have to do is migrate to IPv6, and that's it. Okay. We're working along these lines using new technologies. We're trying to resolve the problem of broadcast. We are analyzing the VPN. This is a solution, but if you agree, we don't work with the option of disconnecting the network, connect everything again and see if it works. This is not an option. The biggest problem to us is where we are and towards where we are going, and how do we reach this place that we want to go. This is not a simple problem to resolve, okay? So, yeah, we can see the different technologies. We already know what we want. Now, to make this transition, I don't know. How long did it take us go from I-10 to 100? It took us like a year. All these activities are done slowly, precisely, because we don't want to have a lack of availability of services and peaks. We do the maintenance, we broaden things, we do a number of things on the network, things that you're not even aware of. Why? Because we do it in a way that it's transparent. We change the network from 10 to 100. You didn't even realize it. But everything is complex. We're studying, we're analyzing, and it's not only on our hands. We're talking to the equipment providers. We take our case, our problem, we talk to them. As I said, the IX network is not a simple network to manipulate. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Julio. Okay, I would like to thank everyone from the panel. I believe that we can continue. I'm going to, could you please show this slide? Last year we had an action, something that we call the peering phases. So this year the idea is to increase this action, and we are launching an idea that is the peering coordinator forum. Could you please project the next slide? So here from the external area, we have reserved 12 tables where we identified the different enterprises and the representative of each one of the enterprises with ASN. So please, now we have 1 hour of drinking beer and together with the enterprises in order to talk, to exchange ideas, and let's do business. This is the last action of IX Fórum. And Milton, would you like to thank everyone? The event is only a success when you have a participation of people. So, as you initiated thanking us, we would like to also thank you. Because this project is a success, because it's only a success due to your participation. For us, because, you know, in an event like this that allows you to have contact with you, to listen to you, okay, this gives us new ideas. This makes us think, you know, in what do we have to improve? It's good to listen to your view. It's good to know what is going to happen in the future. And all the information that was announced about the TIC survey together with the providers is very important, because This gives more visibility to the size of the providers that we're working with and what we have to do to approach of these matters. Can you imagine? We have a service perspective of over 6,000, 7,000 autonomous systems that could participate here. Therefore, we are serving a reasonable amount, a good amount of them. Nevertheless, we also have to see how we're going to deal with this long tail. This long tail is part of our concern, as our concern is also quality, because we are dealing with the Symmetry project that will show you a number of new things, and this way we will better understand what is happening with the regional providers. And we believe that if we better understand what is happening, we will be able to act proactively. And we also expect to see you better than yourselves. So it will be something interesting, okay? We hope that we're able to reap results. We hope that we continue with this next year. But this is an interesting and excellent opportunity to listen to you. This is why I can only thank all of you. Thank you to all of you. And thank you for coming. Okay, so now let's do business. So we should also put a list so everybody can go to the participant tables. Okay, I'm going to just leave this slide on the screen. I would like to thank our sponsors, because we wouldn't be able to organize this with them. Cisco, TEDx Extreme, Google, Abranet, Seaborn, NTT Publications, GlobeNet, Facebook, Angola Cables, Equinix, OpenX, Telxus, Elect. Okay, thank you very much to everyone.